This Isaac with Diamonds and Wood Customs. Today I'm gonna be going over with y'all high output alternators and just giving y'all a little in-depth view in what they do, how they benefit your electrical system when you're running car audio. These are a major factor that come into play when you're doing custom car audio builds that I don't think a lot of people realize and take into consideration their role in your car audio build. To start things off, this is the alternator. The basic concept of what the alternator does is it charges up your battery and your electrical system to run your car. So for instance, a lot of older cars, just say like 60, 70, 80s model, some of them didn't come with a lot of electric components like power windows, power locks, just a lot of little electrical components that some of the newer cars come with. So on the older cars, the alternators are not high amp alternators since they're just basic cars. Now on a newer vehicle, you got digital gauges, you got LED factory LED lights that come in the courtesy lights. You have a lot more electrical features that are on the car, heated seats, AC in the seats, electric headrests, all those type of little things that require electricity for them to work is drawing current from your amp and from your battery. So that's where this comes into play. So say for example, you have a 60 amp alternator in a 1980s model car, and then you put a 2000 watt amp on it. You're gonna be drawing too much current. You're gonna be getting lights dimming. Your car is gonna run kind of sluggish whenever it's under load and you're banging your system. Your voltage is gonna drop drastically. So what this does right here is this keeps your battery voltage powered up, and it keeps it from dropping lower whenever it's under a load. And also any of the batteries that you have in your trunk, in the rear, it also power those up also and keep them charged. So a high output alternator is definitely a plus and an investment whenever you're going into a good audio build. It makes no sense for you to waste hundreds or thousands of dollars on your system, but you don't upgrade this. This is a big factor. It helps maintain your voltage, and it also even starts your car faster. It makes your car run a lot better because, you might only get like 13 volts, 13.5 volts with your factory alternator when it's idling, and then when you put a high output alternator on there, you might be idling at 14.8, 14.9 volts. So it makes your car idle and run better also. It's another benefit of this. When you're installing these, you also have to do a big 3 upgrade, which is consisted of a power wire, that's 1, the ground, that's 2, and then the ground from the battery, that's 3. And you want to use a 0 gauge OFC wiring kit. Make sure that it's oxygen free copper 100%. That way you get good current. You will need, a couple of feet of some 0 gauge wire. You'll need some copper terminals. I like using copper terminals instead of the metal terminals that you see in your amp kits, because copper is a better conductivity of electricity. So I always recommend using copper. You'll need a crimper also to crimp your terminals. Sometimes they come oversized, so they don't fit in here. And whenever you have something like that, then you can use your hammer crimper right here. If you have a different type of crimper that's able to open up a little bit bigger, then that's great. Save you the hassle of beating it down with one of these. Try to get an alternator that has the same type of casing and mounting brackets as your original one. That'll help you in the long run and be an easier install for you. I do know that on these V-belt systems, this is a V-belt right here, this pulley is smaller, so they don't make too high of an amperage for your high output alternator for V belt as they would a serpentine belt. I've seen serpentine belts go up to 500 and plus amps for the alternator. This one is a 250 amp. Like I said, it's on the V belt, so that's pretty good for this system. I wouldn't do no more than 300 on the V belt though. It's too much of a load and too much of a current on the belt from it spinning and the load that it'll more than likely just melt it and break it off from how thin the belt is compared to the serpentine fatter belt. There is a little bit of modification on some of them. It depends what brand alternator you buy. Some of them, they have a wiring diagram that comes with them that tells you which wires to run what plugs into what. Some of them come with a direct plug and play. They'll actually have another wire harness on the end that you just plug into your factory one and that's it. But some of them do require a little bit of splicing and a little bit of crimping in order to get it to work. There is a lot of different brands also. You know, Mechman is probably the most popular brand. You know, there's Apex, JS, Power Basters, Autotech, Ampstar. There's a lot of different high output alternators out there. I don't choose one over the other. I've done installed many different kinds, many different brands. So I just believe in getting you a high output alternator if you're going to be doing your system and you're gonna have a big investment in amps and stuff like that. Also, whenever I do the big three, another thing I want to point out is if you go to your car's factory battery right now and you check the ground wire, it's more than likely going to be like a 14 gauge or a 12 gauge wire, just like this thin right here, and it's going to be grounded to the side of your engine bay somewheres. And if you think about it, your ground from your whole car is running off of this thin wire right here. So that's why it's necessary to go ahead and run 0 gauge OFC. So you'll be having 0 gauge OFC coming from your battery post on your battery to the back of the post on here. So that's just thickening up and making the current more durable and faster to travel through this, also with your ground. And it just gives you better current flow. For instance, if this was a original, just say an 80 amp alternator, when your system plays and your lights dim and your car feels a little sluggish whenever the bass is hitting, your voltage is probably gonna go from a 13 volts down to like 11. And that's not good. You're putting too much of a load on your batteries and you're putting too much of a load on your alternator. You could ruin your alternator and your batteries. And if you have any in the trunk, you can overheat your amps, you can clip your subs. All that comes into play whenever you're dealing with your current from your alternator to your system. So if you have a high output alternator, say you're floating at like 14.5 volts idling or 14.8 when you have a little bit of RPM, and then when your system is under load and you're banging, you might only drop down to like 13.8, 13.5, maybe 14.2. So that's where this comes into play. I definitely recommend anybody that's upgrading their sound system to go ahead and invest in one of these. They run anywhere from $250 up to $600. It depends on the amps you get. All that comes into play when you're dealing with these right here. They do come a little bit more beefed up than your factory one. They're a little bit wider. You can see the dual fans in there. There's one in the rear, one in the front. They come with internal voltage regulators. So definitely invest in one of these. I'm gonna go ahead and set y'all up over there in the front of the Regal, and y'all can see me install it while I do the big three and how it looks on the end. And I'll definitely be going over a little bit of pointers on the install process also. Y'all stick with me. All right, so now for the installation process, you're gonna need some wrenches. You're gonna need a ratchet, you know, for whatever size bolt head that you know, from the original bolts that you take off. Sometimes you do have to go and get new bolts because some of these alternators, they don't come threaded as your original one does, so you'll have to go get an all thread and you know, a lock nut for the end. And yeah, so it does require a little bit of modification sometimes. I try to avoid the ones that you got to cut and line up, like I said, to avoid missing the alignment for the pulley and the belt, so it doesn't keep breaking and flinging off. So we'll go ahead and get this one on here. Kind of got a little ahead of myself, and I really wasn't able to record that good. You know, I just got in the groove and I kept going. But you can see the alternator installed. I had to add a little washer right here and two of them right there in the front in order to push it out to line the belt up evenly with the other pulley from the I believe that's the water pump and fan clutch right there. Yeah, so you know, sometimes you just got to make sure that you have clearance. Also, this belt right here was kind of close. That's the reason why I pulled it out a little bit. It was really close right there. Right here I had the this is the trigger switch, so you got to find a 12 volt ignition source to power this up. This is your voltage regulator straight to the battery terminal. I have the big 3 right here. This is the ground. Got the ground right there on the top, coming all the way to the ground on the battery. I also got the ground to the frame. So there's one ground, there's 2 grounds, and then here's the other power wire that goes to the back of the battery post on the alternator. So there goes your big 3. Everything is with copper lugs, heat shrinked, and then, you know, I just taped it up, you know, to know this one is the negative, this other one down here, and then I just left this one bare right here. But you know, you can add wire loom on there if you want to. Let me know if you guys got any questions about high output alternators and how to install them. This is Isaac with Diamonds and Wood Customs. I appreciate y'all watching.